Hello and welcome back. Let's learn chapter number 24 of class 5th EVS part 1, Substances, Objects and Energy. So we will take a look at what's the difference between objects and substances, what are the different forms of energy, what are the non-exhaustible energy, and many more interesting concepts. So let's start. So it's very important to see that every object that we see around, okay, it's made of tiny particles, or all the substances that we see around are made of very, very tiny particles. Some of them are so tiny particles that they are not even visible to us. For example, if you pound pieces of coal, you will see smaller pieces of coal, right? If you saw a wood, you will see the smaller pieces of wood. If you grind, you will see smaller particles. So when you pound the coal or sugar, it turns into powder. Okay, so those are the smaller particles. Even the small particles of various substances that we can see are themselves made of many tinier particles that are not even visible to our eyes. A very interesting question. What are the small particles that can be seen in a beam of light that enters a dark room? And I guess you know the answer. It's small dust particles that we see in a beam of light. Now, just like the examples we understood of wood and coal, they're all solid substances. But even liquid substances, like say water, can also be broken into small droplets. So liquids are also made of small particles. Now let's take a look at why do we smell of naphthalene when it's packed in clothes, or if it's placed in toilets, why does naphthalene balls simply disappear? So naphthalene is continuously being converted into small particles in the gaseous state, and that's why it disappears. Also, if it is wrapped in a cloth, then those small particles settle on that cloth, and that's why we smell the naphthalene on those clothes, right? So this is how the naphthalene balls grow smaller in size and slowly disappears. So you can see how the solid balls of naphthalene are simply disappearing and they are changing the state from solid to gaseous. And that brings us to the topic of states of substances. For example, water. We can find it in three different states: solid, liquid, and gas. So ice is an example of water in solid state. Water itself, as we know it, in liquid form, and then when you evaporate the water, when the water evaporates, if you boil it and it becomes steam, it turns into gaseous states. So you can see particles of water in gas, right? But the individual particles of water remain the same. What changes is the arrangement of particles, and that's a very important concept in chemistry as well. So all the substances in nature have a particular form, and every substance that occurs in nature has a specific state. For example for solid state would be aluminum and coal. For liquid state could be kerosene, petrol, as well as water, and nitrogen and oxygen are examples of gases. Now, what's the difference between a substance and an object? So substances, as we see around us, is made of minute particles. And we can make different objects from the same substance, right? So objects have a definite shape. For example, now you can see in the picture there is bat, there is a table, there is a chair, there are wooden sheets there in the picture, and they are all made of from the same substance of wood. So objects do have a definite shape and they are made from substances, right? I hope you understand the difference now. Substances are in the solid, liquid or gaseous state. Yes, we have seen the examples. We have seen the substances of water in solid, liquid as well as gaseous state. And from the same substance, we can make different objects, right? Now let's move to the very important concept of energy. What do we understand by energy? How is energy scientifically defined? Energy is required to do work. Why do we need energy? Is because with energy, you can do work. And the capacity of a body to do work is called energy. So how do you define energy? It's the capacity of a body to do work, and that's energy. Now, when the energy is in the form of motion, it's called kinetic energy. This is another very, very important term to understand what's kinetic energy. So all moving things have kinetic energy. Now, example can be wind blows, okay, windmills turn, sailing boats. You have seen clouds moving. Anything and everything that is moving, okay, any moving object or any moving thing has kinetic energy, or the energy due to which it moves is called as kinetic energy. Now that's the energy related to motion. But let's also take a look at fuels. Okay, for example, coal, diesel, CNG, LPG, petrol are all these substances from which energy is obtained in the form of heat, right? If there is heat somewhere, that means heat is also a form of energy, and you can harness the energy of heat from different fuels. So as we have already seen, energy in the form of motion is kinetic energy. There are other examples also which are a bit difficult to understand. For example, a ceiling fan. Now you see that it is moving. A mixer grinder, it's also rotating. A water pump, that also has motions related to it. But these are all powered by electricity. But they are also machines which are running on kinetic energy, and they get this kinetic energy from electricity. And electricity is also a form of energy. So you can always use electricity to create kinetic energy, and you see kinetic energy when there is motion. Now, what are the sources of energy? So the forms of energy that we have seen: heat, light, sound, electricity, and kinetic energy. These are all required to different tasks, or so to say work. Energy is required to do work, we have seen earlier. So the main sources of all these forms of energy for us today in the world is fuels and electricity. And to produce the electricity also, we need power station, which in turn use fuels. But now here is the interesting thing. There are some sources which are non-exhaustible. For example, sunlight or wind or water. These are all considered to be non-exhaustible because they are abundantly available or infinitely available, right? So they are non-exhaustible sources of energy. But if you look at coal and mineral oil, they are all available in limited amount on the planet Earth. And that's why they are exhaustible. They will be not available once you use them for many years, right? They will be depleted, right? Depleted. So this is also a very important term to understand. Which sources are depleted or possibly can be depleted, and which sources of energy are non-exhaustible. They will never be depleted. The heat of the sun, flowing water, and wind do not get depleted. Also, an advantage of using sunlight, wind and water is that they do not cause pollution when you use them for producing the electricity. And that's why we must use sunlight, wind and water, such non-exhaustible sources of energy, to the maximum extent as an alternative sources of energy. I hope you understand the difference between exhaustible and non-exhaustible sources of energy. Now, I want to introduce you quickly to Coastal Mind. If you are preparing for scholarship and Navodaya, you can download this app. It's available on Google Play. You can also contact this number 99233 It's available in Marathi, English as well as semi-English mediums. So it's available in all the three mediums, English, Marathi as well as semi-English. Also, if you are interested in creating such content for education, you can always write us at contact@schoolwithai.com. I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned a lot. So happy learning. Thank you and see you in the next session. Bye.